welcome you to a delightful session with an iconic actor. Prabha Khaitan Foundation, in association with Radisson Blu and Ehsaas Women of Ludhiana, has organized the Right Circle session with the legendary actress, Ms. Deepti, whose films have mesmerized us on the silver screen. There's much joy and cherish as Ms. Deepti engages in a fascinating conversation with Ms. Deepika Bhalla, sharing snippets of her life, career, and book, A Country Called Childhood, a memoir. Prabha Khaitan Foundation has organized a 3-day series of the Right Circle sessions in multiple cities of Punjab. Today's The Right Circle with Deepti is the second session in the city of Ludhiana. Before I introduce the author and the conversationalist, allow me to speak about Prabha Khaitan Foundation. Prabha Khaitan Foundation is a Kolkata-based non-profit trust which was established in the 1980s by the late Dr. Prabha Khaitan, an eminent literature enthusiast, cultural activist, and a staunch feminist. The foundation dedicatedly works to connect readers to the literary creations of authors and poets, and showcases talented musicians, dancers, and performing artists through praiseworthy literary and cultural initiatives. Each initiative of the foundation enjoys a global identity and niche audience, creating the finest experiences and cultural landmarks on the global map. The foundation has an active presence in more than 40 cities in India and overseas. The foundation enjoys the patronage of Shree Cement Limited and is ably assisted by distinguished associates, partners, and Ehsaas Women of India in its efforts to create cultural capital. Prabha Khaitan Foundation supports the UNESCO view that cultural development has the potential to be an alternative way of promoting sustainable development in poor rural communities, especially in third world countries. The foundation promotes networking among communities in order to create cultural capital. The foundation has several boutique literary initiatives under its wing: An Author's Afternoon, The Right Circle, Kalam, Akhar, etc. The Right Circle is one of the stellar literary initiatives that is designed for connecting authors writing in English language to their readers in India and abroad. The Right Circle, as a cross-country platform, is dedicated to encouraging and broadening the spectrum of English literature on the global map. As a fascinating gathering of veteran and new authors with a niche audience, each session of the Right Circle is interesting, thought-provoking, and delightful. It regales in engaging conversations about their literary works, journeys, and viewpoints on manifold aspects across multiple cities and abroad. It is wonderful to have actor-author Ms. Deepti in conversation with Ms. Deepika Bhalla this afternoon. Ms. Deepti is an icon whose portrayal of close-to-life characters in the area of art cinema is commendable. Her graceful and sensitive performances in award-winning movies redefined the role of women in Indian cinema. She is the first American Indian actor to join Hindi cinema. Deepti is a multifaceted personality closely connected to the world of theatre. Her debut in theatre was with the poetic stage show Ek Mulaqat, where she plays the celebrated Punjabi writer Amrita Pritam. She is also a director and a writer. Ms. Deepika Bhalla is a jewelry designer by profession and a travel photographer and a writer by passion. An expert in restoring antique jewelry pieces, her vast work expanse includes major brands and labels of semi-precious jewelry and costume jewelry. Her love for photography and writing emerged when she explored places to delve into historical aspects of jewelry making. Ms. Bhalla has worked with prominent magazines like the National Geographic, Scribe, and Gogo magazine. She has been recognized by Punjab Tourism for her covering lost monuments and historical sites of India, especially Punjab. Without much delay, it is time to start the conversation. I invite Ms. Bhalla and Ms. Deepti to please come and start the conversation. Just a kind reminder, the before the session starts, I would request everyone to please keep their mobiles on silent mode or switched off.
It's a painted word image through the brushstrokes of her memory and experiences. Miss Deepti has transported us back to an era in Amritsar. So, I first want you to read your favorite part from the book. Let's just create a mood, an ambience of what it means.
I'm going to read the preface of the book called Dance of the Songs. It's getting dark in the city of Amritsar. Shops are shutting down. Street lamps come on, casting dim, yellow pools of light. Rickshaws and bicycles hustle to make their way home. A handcart loaded with gunny bags wobbles down the street. Even Dwarka's kite shop is winding up. The old Sardar tailor pulls his rickety shutter down, gets on his bicycle and pedals away. Shani's voice can be heard. She's urging her buffaloes home. Grubby little boys, the mochis, play outside in the gully, and behind the threshold of the Phatak, the big iron gate, two little girls, Bobby and Dolly, go about their lives. This scene seems like it's from hundreds of years ago, but it actually dates back to 1956. It's one of my earliest memories in which I'm about 4 years old. It's the street I remember the most, the street on which I lived. A little girl darts out of her house crying, "I want to go to my mama." "Come back," shouts my Sardi, my nanny, from inside the big gate. "No, I want to go to my mama." "Your mama has gone to the cinema now, just you get in here at once." "I will also go to the cinema," she retorts and runs down the street. Suddenly something stirs in the air. There's a muffled grunt in the sky and the breeze changes. The sky turns red, tin sheds begin to flap and rattle, the smell of wind on earth. It's a dust storm. Stray pieces of paper littering the ground outside the bookbinder's shop fly up and float in the air. Bicycles fall in a slow, studied motion along the wall of the cinema hall. The wooden shutter of Gyan Halwai's shop tilts and slips out of its clamp. He stands with his arms outstretched, holding it with all his Malai lassi strength against the wind, his lungi threatening to fly off. A rickshaw puller pedals backwards and sideways. The world seems to slant at the edges. Dust storms the streets. My Sardi's voice cuts through the mayhem. "Stop, I say, get back, girl. It's dark." The girl is not coming back. She runs all the way to the end of the street and suddenly finds herself in the middle of Katra Sher Singh Chowk, in front of Regent Talkies, surrounded by huge cinema posters. The posters begin to tear from the whiplash of the wind. Faces of actors and actresses fold up and slap against the dry whitewash of the decrepit cinema hall. Unable to keep her eyes open from the dust, wind, and tears, the little girl hides her face in her sleeve. At her feet swirl particles of dust, torn scraps of paper, bright orange and pink trimmings from the tailor's shop, and gather momentum. She stands still for a while, watching the little merry-go-round around her dotted rubber booties until her eyes fall upon something else. Across the street, the plotwala is doing a tandav. He is the skinny man who sells little leaflets with the plot and songs of Hindi films printed on them. A strong gust whisks away the sepia-colored leaflets from his hands and flings them into the wind. They soar in the air, going up and up in circles, dodging the poor man's attempts to retrieve them. Tossed into the wind, the yellowed sheets somersault, now diving to his feet, now rising as if to sudden applause. He leaps and plunges by the side of the road, slapping his arms around, hurling himself at the musical notes. One leaf slips into two and two into four, till the songs dance above his gaunt, lanky frame. He dances with the songs, the poor plotfather, trying in vain to hang on to his only means of livelihood as it slips away into grainy air. No one notices the little girl as she stands in the middle of the chalk, enthralled by the dance of the songs. Her large eyes fill with tears, but she forgets to cry. There you are, Marjani. My Sardi steps forward, scoops me up in one sweeping movement, lodges me onto her hip, and strides down the street, puts me back inside the house where I belong. As we enter, my grandmother rises from her chair, pointing a finger at me. No little girls from good homes go out to cinemas on the street. Thank you. That is the opening of my book, to give you an ambience of the place where I grew up, where I was born, and all that.
You understand when I said 3D imagery, from the Malai Lassi to the flying lungi to Marjani, every aspect covered. The landscape of Amritsar, I can almost imagine the Heruddin's mosque, which is like a most prominent presence in your book, further there.
Yes.
So I thought that it was from the dark glory when it was built to the white presence it is now. The imagery that you even read now is very vivid, very vivid. You cover all aspects, the fluttering posters and the way she says Marjani, everything. Please explain a little about the imagery behind all this.
I think in visuals. I think visually. When I recall something, it's the visual. I think we all do. We recall the images, and then to put them down like you remember them in your head. I think that's something. It's the way I write. My writing is cinematic.
Yes,
I have strong images in my head, so I try to reproduce them just the way I remember them. जो जैसे याद है उसको, I try my level best to be as accurate to my memory. I mean, to the way my memory is about the things that I remember most.
Yeah, it's an all-round experience. I mean, just not the physical aspect. It's like you're going through the noise, the voice, what the eye sees, what the ears hear, everything at one go. It's a total experience. So you heard the word Marjani in her first preface. There's a use of lot of vernacular words which are very typical to Amritsar. There are words like chuchi, kol chapni, abu chali, followed by hilarious, fun moments of the book. I would like her to explain some of those words. I want you to explain kol chapni first of all.
Kol chapni is the lotus seeds, the green. Amritsari mildi hai, right? Yeah. So we know about kol chapni here. Yeah, it was tender green lotus seeds, and you would have to peel them, and that white little seed that comes out the pod. It's a very soft, tender thing, and it used to come in the mornings. सुबह सुबह कॉल चटनी वाला आता था, आबू छली वाला भी आता था सुबह सुबह.
आबू छली आप एक बार बताइए क्या है?
आबू छली is उसके पास एक it was a square box with hot sand inside, and these chalies would be in there somewhere. तो हम जब भाग के I would go and run and आबू छली लेने के लिए, तो he would dig his hand into the sand, and I would always wonder कि उसमें से गरम गरम छली निकलती है तो उसके हाथ और इसके हाथ को सेक नहीं लगता, ये सैंड जो है वो गर्म है, क्योंकि नीचे there would always be a little flame, some kind of, there must be a device, right? हाँ, चारकोल होता है something. तो वो आगू छलनी वाला सुबह सुबह आता था. There was so many, those sounds, smells. Yeah, I mean
The
the
visuals
ambience.
with the langurs also.
हाँ,
That's
हाँ.
a beautiful passage.
Yes, Amritsar में, of course, it's a cultural thing that the first born, the boy who जो मन्नत मांगने से जो बेटा पहला लड़का पैदा होता है उसको फिर लंगूर बनाते हैं और वो हनुमान जी के मंदिर में जाके उसको he has to, and little boys all dressed in white and red and gold, red and gold orange tinsel garments, and little ones, they look so cute and they're all dressed like langoors और वो drum beat करते हुए पीछे, और ये लोग सब they don't know what they are doing but they're all going to Hanuman temple, and those were motifs, images from the place where I grew up. The house was just adjacent to the mosque, Khairuddin ki Masjid, I call it Masjid. In my entire book, I do use a lot of Punjabi terms because that's the way I remember them. Masjid. And the lane between the house and was just this much. और वो मस्जिद की जो दीवार है, घर की दीवार है, is fingertips away. So there's the presence of the mosque. क्योंकि सारे 19 साल तक छत पे सोते थे और आसमान को देखते हुए, तो ये मस्जिद थी. And then there was this the minarets, the clouds, the sky, the stars, and the moon going behind the cloud, behind the minarets. So it was always the romantic imagery that I grew up with. So I keep telling, I keep saying that with all those images that one grew up with, night after night you're going to sleep looking at the stars and the clouds and the moon. How are you going to grow up to be a normal, practical kind of a person? Not possible.
So, coming back again, even if you go through the chapter where she describes the night when she was born, beautiful chapter, and obviously not her own memory, but then again,
My mother's.
yes,
My mother describes the night I was born. She describes it in great detail कि वहाँ पे fireplace तो था, VJ Hospital in Amritsar. Fireplace था, बहुत जोरों की बारिश थी. She said बड़ी बारिश हो रही सी, तूफानी रात सी. My mother loved storytelling, and because उनकी अपनी stories मामा की, she used to tell me a lot of stories. I grew up on her stories, like I said. So she describes the night as a stormy winter night. Not just storm, it was a kind of heavy rainfall. So she said she was in one of the corner rooms of a kind of deserted ward. Maybe there were other wards which had people and patients, but the ward where Mama was, and I had just been born. She was in a place which was leaking all over. The room had water leakage all over the place, and the room was filled with water. और वो डिस्क्राइब करती हैं कि कैसे एक फायरप्लेस तो था, फर्नेस था, लेकिन कोई I must have toughened with that night only. I became a nature freak, I think, because of the way in the night that I was born. Whether it is rain, wind, नेरी या जो भी कह लो, I was always okay with those elements in nature. So she says कि एक साधु came knocking on her door, on this door in the ward, and obviously he's asking for money. So Mama said that I couldn't get up. She was so weak. She could, if she had put her feet down from the bed where she was lying, she would have knee deep in the water, and it was chilling. The night was chilling. So he went away cursing, and I would always ask her, say, Mama, what was the curse? And she'd say, something. What was the curse, Mama? He cursed me, my doll, not you. Always. That was the story of the night I was born.
and as you can see, she's very strong with her personifications as well. If you go through the book, all the emotions, she describes them as a persona. So there are stories and incidents regarding every emotion she discovers while growing up. Like there's a story behind compromise, Chini and Loon. That is one of my favorite stories in the book. And please, we would like to
I'll
hear
tell
this.
you I was very little and my nani, I used to call her बड़ी मम्मी, वो कभी कभी रहने आती थी मुकेरिया से. So I would go to the kitchen and say, बड़ी मम्मी थोड़ी चीनी दे दो. And she would say, कोई नहीं चीनी देनी, चल जा. And I would stand there and say, अच्छा फिर थोड़ा लून ही दे दो. When Mama would narrate this story to me, I would be extremely embarrassed. And I remember very early when I started hearing this story about me, I said, no way am I going to compromise ever in life to that extent that you want sugar, but you're ready to settle for namak the next instance. That has always remained with me.
All the emotions, in fact, empathy also with that boy who comes for the milk.
Mama would periodically go and distribute milk. Neighborhood में घर में जाके. So one day she's distributing milk. I'm just standing next to her like this, and I'm kind of not noticeable. Also, but I'm there. And बच्चों को दूध बांट दिया उन्होंने. तो जब उतरने लगी मैं और मामा from the staircase down, there was a little boy standing there with a little katori in his hand, and he's looking up, and Mama's looking down at him, and I'm also looking in, and Mama says, "बच्चे इतनी देर ना लाए दूध तो खत्म हो गया." And he said, "मेरी माँ से कैसे बोला होगा that my mother didn't have a katori. She had to borrow it from the neighbors." And I remember, I think I was probably just 3.5 years old. This is my first memory. The region jockey and the plotwala and the dance of the songs is the second memory. This is the first one, and I remember looking at that boy, and he had this large, dark face and his large white eyes, and and just half dressed, नंगे पैर और ऐसे ऊपर चढ़ के आया बड़ी मुश्किल से लैंडिंग पे. And I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, I'm feeling some empathy for him, and I'm also seeing like as if I'm looking at Mama, me, and him somewhere here, like a bird's eye view, and I have that visual in my head कि मैं खड़ी हूँ मामा के साथ उसको देख रही हूँ, and I remember looking at him and registering the feeling that I have for him at that time, this great empathy and registering that feeling. That is the first time I think I was putting myself in place of somebody else and feeling what he could be feeling at that time, which went a long way with me in my career as an actor, because you're all the time playing somebody else. You have to feel like somebody else. So you're always putting yourself in somebody else's shoes and then emoting from there. So this is one of the earliest, things that I can place my finger on. कि हाँ ये पहले मुझे ऐसे.
There are whole lots of passages in it, bitterness. Even the fear when you had to go down for bathroom, रात को सीढ़ियाँ उतर के, and your father would be holding the light.
पिताजी ऊपर ना पिती I call him because I couldn't say पिताजी properly. So पिती, he was always, he was a professor, he was a person of English literature, all that, and he was teaching in college, and he had the habit of reading every night before he went to sleep. He could not sleep without reading a book. तो जब बाथरूम करने जाना होता था तो वो 3 flats down. तो I was on the second floor, third floor. I would be so scared because नीचे कोई light ही नहीं होती थी. Now I question myself, could there be a light नीचे जो रात भर चलती रही पर नहीं होती थी. It was pitch dark नीचे, and I would imagine all kinds of. Piताji would hold the table lamp across the छज्जा and light up the whole वेड़ा नीचे and say, okay जाओ बेटा कुछ नहीं डरने की, no need to get scared. I'm holding the light for you now. And his lamp would be there illuminating, but सीढ़ियों में अंधेरा होता था. And I would go down, डरते डरते, imagining all kinds of भूत प्रेत living in the house. कभी कोई दाढ़ी वाला, लाल teeth वाला बूढ़ा आदमी, कभी कोई बुढ़िया with her hair straggly, grey hair all over her face and laughing and grinning and all kinds of horrible images. And I used to kind of skirt around them. They existed for me, they existed. They were always around the corner. I would just go niche and then dheere go, and I would not go into the ghusl khana and pee over there. I would pee outside in that little nali. I would sit across and then बाहर से वो गली जो है between the mosque and the house, वहाँ से कोई खाओ खाओ करते हुए निकलता था to hold myself. निकल जाता था, I was just pull up and run back. And as you would take the lamp down, say, see, I told you, it's nothing. And I would say, yeah, you're sure.
This childlike wonder through your book, tell me how it did not get bogged down by the adult cynicism. It's throughout the book, the wonder, the amusement, the child vision, the innocence. How did you just manage to maintain it throughout?
When I was writing, I made it a point to not write from the me that is now, to remember it the way it was and put it down the way I felt then. आज के इस पर्सपेक्टिव से लिखना मुझे लिखना ही नहीं था, मुझे वही लिखना था जो उस वक्त फील होता था, वैसे फील. I was reliving and putting that moment down in all its honesty and candor, so that people get a feel of what it was really, those moments. I mean, now if I say, हम डरते बहुत थे, रात को नीचे जाना पड़ता था, it used to be dark, it used to be this, that. I didn't want to write my book like that. I wanted to write my book like a screenplay, like a novel. मेरी life के scenes, but writing them like recreating those scenes for you all to read and feel what I was feeling.
They say nostalgia is a beautiful lie, but in her case, nothing is lied about. It's truly and beautifully written. Even the darker parts, when she talks about her parents arguing, which happens almost in every household, or her mother going through a loss of a son, she's very candid, very truthful.
She lost 3 offspring between me and my younger brother. So there was always this looming tragedy in her persona.
But you never covered up the areas when your parents were having. बहुत सच्चाई से किताब लिखी है.
Yeah.
Very truthfully.
Yeah.
Yet with optimism.
As a child, how it impacted me, it made me very insecure. I mean, I remember being very jittery, hearing my parents argue in their room, and I have recalled 2-3 instances where I find them arguing, and that argument, उससे ना एक डर बैठ गया कि things could go wrong, because I idealized my parents. I used to think that if there has to be companionship, it should be like my mama and my Deepti. So when these aberrations would happen, which happened like 2 or 3 times during my childhood, there's something that kind of settled in my heart, saying that, well, things that look perfect on the surface may not be so perfect. There could always be a possibility of them breaking up or going wrong. I didn't even know what it is to break up, but वैसा नहीं है, कुछ गलत भी हो, मतलब कुछ I could lose something.
But then you come from a long line of like your grandparents on both sides, very strong personalities and still amazing marriages and persons in their own right.
Yeah, my dada, who I call Bauji and BBG. Bauji was a leading criminal lawyer. and BBG was a very prominent social worker. Yeah, social worker. Shobha. Yeah, I will introduce you to her when I get to that. We grew up together, Shobha Didi and I. We grew up together. They were my tenants up on the floor above us. They occupied the 3 stories above, and we were in this side of the house, and they were on that side of the house. And we grew up running into each other all the time. I was forever up and down in their home, and vice versa. I was saying, my grandparents, my Dadaji, Bauji was a Khattar Jansangi, and my Dadi, Bibiji, was a staunch Congress. And they had a wonderful marriage. They would sit at the dining table, they would discuss each other's point of view, listen to them, and they would exchange. They would put their views across to each other. They never clashed. There is not a single story of my grandparents ever having a clash of ideas, or like an ego clash, or apne stance ke liye. It was okay. You stay with your ideology. I will stay with mine, and it was perfect. So, it is amazing, these stories, and my father being, a student of literature, then being a professor, and the family was such that when knowing that my mother was a girl who was a refugee twice, they took 1 rupee as Dahej, as a token. कि ये 1 रुपया हम देते हैं आपसे, दहेज हो गया, nothing. And these are examples from the family that I am so proud of.
So, growing up in Amritsar and going to convent, you were fed on a very interesting literature over there.
Yeah.
And also your instances from convent. Like, I love the part, आजकल houses होते हैं, सभी schools में kids are given houses. So she was given St. Patrick's, which has green color. You have to listen to her why she hated the green color. Why she didn't want St. Patrick's.
I was in St. Patrick's house, and trust me, the uniform was green, sweater was green, green kameez, green frock all our lives, and then the blazer was green. And then I went into the green house, and all I got was a green chunni, net ki chunni mili, green color ki, and I was literally shattered. I was looking at the blue, I was looking at the mauve, St. Joseph's, blue St. George, St. Thomas was red, and here I was saddled with green. And I came back so dejected by life. I said, no, I can't be in this greenhouse. I told Sister Rita, I said, can you change my house, please? She said, no, my dear, this is fine. You're St. Patrick's. And my mother said, I said, no, I hate it. My mother said, why? I said, green, everything is green. And jahan dekho, green peड़, green grass, green everything. She said, silly girl, every color has its beauty. There is a particular shade in every color, and that is a thing of great beauty. So I said, no, blue, you look up. For green, you're always looking down. Or some such stupid excuses that I gave her, and she put my head right. And not till I went to Sister Germaine's painting class, which was on the first floor. When I went there, and when she said, paint whatever you see outside, and we had to look at the landscape. School was surrounded by green fields, and when I sat there looking at the green fields in order to paint them, that's when it registered in my head कि कितना प्यारा color है green. And then I started, because she told us to look at the green. तो इस तरह की बातें सारी मेरी किताब भरी पड़ी है इस तरह की बातों से.
But convent तो काफी interesting था. What Miss Hussain and your theories about the nuns.
We were very wicked. We used to gossip a lot about the nuns. We used to say, देखो हमारा ambience was very, very contrasting. you know, the school that I went to was, we had all European nuns, Belgian nuns from the Belgian congregation of 63 or something. And at home, this Mochi Malla in the back, who we used to call Mochistan, your brother had given that name. Gogi ने वो नाम दिया था उनको, Mochistan we used to call them. And सामने तबेला है, so these buffaloes, सामने वो जो सड़क जिस सड़क पे this huge monumental building which is called home, you know, 500 square yards in the middle of the walled city with all these 4 stories of, you know, and God knows how many 17 rooms and God knows how many staircases. तो सामने जो सड़क थी उसके ऊपर दुकानें, all kinds of shops, and there was a contrast. In school, the nuns were so strict. You have to be absolutely immaculately dressed. Everything has to be polished, clean. Pleats had to be ironed out properly. Shoes, laces, everything. और यहाँ पे mochis are running up and down the gully all the time. You know, it was a great ambience to grow up in. It gave me the chance to observe life and assimilate. And I think it all went down in my emotional reservoir from where I could draw later as an actress and play, you know, different emotions, different. और वहाँ पे पीछे एक दियोली होती थी, उसको रात को उसने अपने हस्बैंड को मारना ही मार पीटी चलती थी. She used to मतलब उसकी आवाज़ एंड में ढोलक बजता था. राजस्थानी कॉबलर क्लैन थे. ढोलक के बिना वो मंजीरा और ये उसके बिना सोते नहीं थे. तो every night when we used to retire to the terrace, तो उनके ढोलक की और उनके मंजीरे की आवाज़ आती थी. रोज़ का था ये. But Dioli's voice beating up her husband and screaming at him would be the last voice to fade in the night. So ये contrasting ये ambience बहुत मज़े का था. When I decided that I am going to write about my childhood, is because there's nothing compared to the dynamic environment in which I grew up. You know, the nuns on one hand, the nuns का हम लोग इतना gossip करते थे. Oh, wise father so and so came into the hall. Did you see him enter from that door? यही बकवास हम लोग करते रहते. I was a very timid kind of introverted girl, you know. So I would never be the one to lead this gossip, but I was never also. I was okay with it. Like I would always be okay with it. I didn't object to the gossip. I would just listen and just observe and just, you know, let it all sink in, you know. But Miss Hussain thi, she was a bit odd. There was something odd about her. Miss Hussain was this Indian teacher. She was not a nun. तो जब वो थोड़ी सी odd होती थी, तब we used to discuss her कि isn't she so strange? She's really off her rocker, you know. And the girls, of course, we found out. उनकी एक story थी, which I have written in the book. Her story was that she trained herself. She trained to be a nun for 3 years. She went for this rigorous training in a convent, and at the end, I mean, the night before, she used to take these vows of, you know, becoming a nun and devote her life to Jesus Christ. She ran away from the convent. She got cold feet, she ran away. But because she ran away, she felt she had let Jesus Christ down, and she lost her mind a little bit. You know, not that she couldn't teach and be a normal person, but there was something shifted in her head, and that always remained there. And so when I found out, I kind of really liked the drama in her story. And I said, wow, to train for 3 years and then to just walk back, just to run away in the night before. Wow, what must be? इस तरह की सारी चीजें हैं. Another school friend of mine also suffered from mental illness, so I got to watch her closely, and we greatly empathized with her, and we were very protective about her. Her name was Nita, very protective, and we finally, through all those years, 8th, 9th, 10th, finally the nuns had to send her to the Amritsar Mental Hospital, from where her father came in and took her after she was institutionalized for a while. But that's another story.
But timid, she was not. Don't believe that. Read the book. Because Shararat and Deepti ji went hand in hand.
But very quiet. No. I was an introvert. I was a great introvert. Trust me. I was not open. मेरे अंदर दिमाग में क्या चल रहा है? Nobody could tell, because I was a very kunni kind of.
So introvert वाले नहीं थे, and especially not to that boy who responded back.
When we grew up a little bit, when boys came on this surface of our existence, तो curiosity होती है ना कि किसी लड़के से बात तो नहीं करते थे, बस ये आपस में हम लोग घर में जो cousins and neighbors और वही सब होते थे. But to talk to boys, so girls, what we would do is we would dial a wrong number. The chapter is called Wrong Number. We would dial any odd number, and if a nice accent, good English speaking voice picked up the phone on the other end, and the voice sounded nice and husky and good timbre, we would start to dhire chat up, little bit, and the phone would pass on. Of course, these guys must have been able to see कि it's not one voice talking to me. There are 2, 3, 4 voices here. So all this went on, and we thought we were very smart. And we were talking to boys also without revealing our identity, and we didn't know who the hell we were talking to. But that it didn't matter. It didn't matter till one day, थोड़ा सा conversation थोड़ी आगे बढ़ी, तो Nonu or Santosh, one of my friends, is on the phone, and she's saying कि तुम करते क्या हो? And asked the boy, what do you do? What do you do? He says, what? Like what? He says, what do you do for a living? And he says, I have a, please, we have to hear this. God, I thought 100 times before. He said, I manufacture bras, I have a bra. That was the last of those wrong number calls. After that day, not one phone call did we ever make.
No, but first impressions counted very big with her. No, we have to hear about the crash of the crush. About the first impressions.
No, that was my first crush. Okay, कोई एक लड़का था. He would be passing by on the street, going towards DAV college maybe, on his scooter. So I noticed him passing. और थोड़ा ज़्यादा बार आता जाता होगा तो मैंने उसको notice किया. He was damn cute. So it registered that some cute boy passes by, and I was convinced that he's passing by so often because he must be wanting a glimpse of me. He must have seen me. He knows I live here, and he must be because of me. So I was convinced, and I used to imagine that someday he will stop me. We'll meet on the road ऐसे passing by, and he will ask me what my name is, and he will tell me his name. तो वो imagination में पता नहीं कितने नाम उसके सोच के रखे. And then I'm going for a walk with my Pitaji. Both of us are coming back from morning walk, and I just look up at the end of my street only, on the first floor. There's this cute guy standing and doing Datan. And you have to hear. I just lost it. All this fancy crush of mine just came crashing down. I said, what the hell? He doesn't even have a toothbrush. How can I be dreaming about this? But those are, today we might go to these organic stores and look for Datans. That's another story. But at that time, yeah.
But equally interesting is your painting class and the way you drop and paint all over that kit.
This is when we were teenagers now. I joined prep, Government College Amritsar, Government College for Women, और painting class joined की ठाकुर सिंह आर्ट गैलरी. And my mother first taught me how to sketch and draw because she was a wonderful painter herself. But when I went to college, तो ये join किया, and there were boys and girls, and we were all sit around अपने अपने easel पे बैठ के we would do our assignments. So this one assignment was you have to make a portrait, paint a portrait, any portrait. It could be somebody else's portrait or your own portrait or from imagination some portrait. But no, you have to paint a portrait of either yourself or somebody. So, दो चार दिन के बाद I'm just landing off in the class a little early. I go around, nobody's there yet. I look at everybody's canvas and I stood in front of one easel and it is my face on that. And I was like horrified. How dare this person paint my portrait without asking me? And I was very offended. And I thought, no, this is not on because this is not done. It's just not decency, है ना? कि आपने बनाओ आप portrait, but at least they don't do it as a sly kind of a gesture. So I was so angry. I took paint, I took a brush and I, slathered it with black paint and went all over the portrait. And then I died of guilt because when I landed in class later, I realized the most decent boy in class. He was this young Sardar boy. बड़ा मतलब उसके मुंह में ज़बान भी नहीं होती थी वो खड़ा हुआ है अपनी ईज़ल के सामने and he's horrified at who has done this to his portrait. And I was so guilty, and I'm sitting with this friend of mine in school, in college, and I'm telling her, I said, you know what, we think we are going to be artists, but we don't have the mindset. This is such a middle class, mindset. This kind of thing. So we were questioning that art should free you. It has to liberate you. So, why are we thinking like that? Why are we reacting like that?
I said teenage years were quite happening, what with the elbow crusade and everything. So the story behind it is quite concrete. So she was on a bus and she was groped. We all are women here.
Yeah, we go through this once.
First
Somebody
reaction always is
coming and standing right up against you.
We're always in shock, and then comes fear, and then comes anger. कि क्यों किया? क्यों नहीं हमने retaliate किया? It's so truly and beautifully described. And later on, she goes on to form the elbow crusade.
Yeah, we called it the elbow crusade because we learned that this eve teasing was so rampant in Punjab, in the north. The way men looked at you was so objectionable. You felt like it was not nice. We grew up in that ambience. When you are out on the street, cycle pe aap ja rahe ho, kabhi aap rickshaw mein, bus mein, the way, boys would zip past you and pass some nasty remark and some lewd remark. So those things used to bother us. And then to get groped, in the bus, you're standing, somebody, tries to grab you, and it was horrible. And girls would come to school crying sometimes, ho gaya, and all that. And then we just decided that we're not going to just take this, we're going to retaliate. We'll find a way of, how dare anybody just touch our bodies? It's our body, how dare, So we called it the elbow crusade, and I'll tell you why. Because in a bus, you're holding your books like this, or you're holding your bag, or एक हाथ ऊपर होता था, anybody can come grab your bust or your chest. So what we books pakro, but keep your elbows up, and that's the only way you can keep men. You can keep men at bay, because how dare they come and stand right up close to you. So that elbow crusade is how we kind of toughened up against the horrible habit of eve teasing, and how we tried to fight it. Of course, we asked one girl to, एक लड़का उसको बहुत ही rude remarks pass करता, she would come to school on a bicycle. तो उसको, we decided कि she's going to lead him, you know. So we were all behind the wall of the school, about 8 to 10 girls or 13 girls, I don't know how many. And this boy is led by her. She kind of really liked his smile, and obviously he kind of followed her. And when he turned around the wall, we stopped. so suddenly from all this, you know, saying ugly things to her, suddenly he starts saying, नहीं 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 दीदी दीदी माफ कर दो पेंजी पेंजी माफ कर दो. तो वो सारे पेंजी बन गए और वो दीदियाँ बन गई हम लोग सब. And that's you know, every girl in the north of India, at least, and I know it's all over India. These days, it's not just eve teasing; it's a crime. These days, things have taken on such ugly dimensions. I was only talking about eve teasing and how we fought that, but today, the women are fighting a much larger battle.
Yeah.
Definitely. It's very disturbing.
There's a certain uniqueness about your memories, be it the palette memory or the place memory. When people talk about Amritsar, they often talk about the good food. So instead of talking about kesar ki dal, she will talk about the aam papad. Instead of talking about chole kulche, she will talk about the lassi or the Shivram studios. And then, of course, so many places like the book lovers retreat and
Bazaar.
yes, unique
Yeah.
places, different places.
In my world, see, I was never a foodie. In fact, that the only thing I don't like about Amritsar is the focus on food.
All right, that's unique.
Definitely. I don't know why Amritsaris are so obsessed with food. Because I was never a foodie, so it never played on my mind. Food never played on my mind, and I was fond of the आलू छलीस and आम पापड़ वाला. रात को भी आता था आम पापड़ बेचने, है ना, रात में हम लोग. So then of course there was a tikki wala at one end of our street, and at the other end was this Gyan Halwai lassi, right? So tikki wala and kulfi wala, and the other end is Gyan Halwai. And I was good with that. Kulche chole, of course, I तो होंगे ना, but I had no cravings for that. But I did have cravings for that falude wali kulfi. And Gyan Halwai ki lassi ko hum keh rahe the, he must be using blotting paper, you know, on the top layer. It can't be like this, so thick and so. So as kids, we were quite crazy. There was a character called Pa. Pa was a half-mad fellow who lived under the thada of our house. वो हमारी कभी टांग खींच लेता था. So we always be scared. Then there was a Mai Kodkilli. Remember?
Yeah.
Mai Kodkilli, Mai Tanni. उसका नाम तो था Mai Tanni, but we used to call her Mai Kodkilli because she was very skinny and she was there was something eerie about her, because when our Tonga used to school Tonga used to pass through that gully, she would always run after us, and और हम लोगों को लगता था कि हमें घसीट लेगी टोंगे के नीचे. her hands would be वो पकड़ने की कोशिश में, and we would screech and sort of go all over each other trying to save ourselves from her. I mean, these are the characters that grew up. एक बार क्या था वो, चले गए देखने, मेला नहीं वो, रावण दशहरा देखने and the patakas and everything. So वो रावण के जो 10 heads, वो पता नहीं क्या हुआ, they came down in slow motion, and they're all spinning on the ground, and people are doing hopscotch over those. So I recall everything, I remember it, and I try to put it down the way it was. Of course, I've talked about my coming of age. In the book, I've talked about how from a child you become a girl, how you become self-conscious of being a girl. And there was this hat stand.
Yes.
There was the hat stand in my veranda,
which is still with you.
Yeah, it is with me. That's the only piece of furniture I've retained from the house when it got demolished and it was falling apart and had to be sold. So the hat stand mein rakha hua hai, that was an element in the house which was for me, it was like somebody I could confide in because usme shisha tha. So over years it saw me trying to raise myself. कभी थोड़ा सा दिखता था, फिर थोड़ा और दिखता, फिर आंखें भी नजर आने लगी. And I could see myself up like that chin. And then finally, over the years, when I could stand in front of the hat stand, you know, on the floor without stepping up and trying to. I've written about how that hat stand is actually the true witness of my coming of age. So there's a whole section about the hat stand. Till I wear my first sari for Brian Uncle's wedding. Yeah, and it kind of gives me an approval and smiles back when I smile at myself. Some things like that. For me, all these things were so real because that's in my one thing was my outer world, and there was also my inner world. In my inner world, I had a name for every buffalo. One was Charlie, another was Brownie, there was Bhuri, Gango, all kinds of names I had for the buffalo shed across the house. Or I remember that buffalo shed. I remember one, I described the monsoon a lot in my book. I hope I'm not talking too much. Am I talking? No, it's okay. You know, one monsoon night, I described how somebody came knocking and said that बछड़ा होने वाला है, तो come. Mama grabbed both me and my sister. She wanted us to experience this. We were little, and we went across बारिश हो रही, तो ऊपर वो mochis वो gunny bags पहन के everybody crosses. I think Raj auntie was there, इनके mother and me, Mama, Didi, and little mochi. एक दो from the mochi clan, one or two women, and so we're all standing there, you know. बारिश हो रही है, एक street lamp जला हुआ है, एक या दो जिसमें वो Charlie's giving birth. And I see this you know, bachra being born, and with these large luminous eyes and shiny velvety, shiny skin in the rain and in the yellow lamp light, and it was a magical moment for me to see this living creature coming to this world. And as it came out, you know, it kind of slithered out and kind of Shani couldn't hold it, and it kind of fell on the floor, and everybody's like, oh! You know, like that. And then of course, without any help, it swayed a bit on the ground, on the slushy ground, जिसमें कीचड़ है, पाथियाँ वो जो all that, you know, cow dung and everything, and it stood, and I was amazed. You know, it has just been born. It fell on the ground and it swayed a little and it's standing upright, and those large eyes. Oh my God, I can never forget that. These are the images I wanted to put down in my book. My book is also about the times that I grew up in, the second half of the 50s. जब से मुझे होश आया, I was born in 52, so 56 onwards, I have memories. So I would say late 50s and all of 60s, going into 70 and 70. Till the book covers all the period till my father decided to migrate to the US and start life again at the age of 48, when all other people were deciding कि कहाँ डलहौजी में या मसूरी में कहाँ जाके retire करें. My father said, no, we are going to America and we are going to migrate. और मतलब उस तरह से एक तरह का drastic. Yeah, migration is, I think, in my family's blood. चाहे वो voluntary migration हो या forced हो और मजबूरी से आए हों, तो वो कुछ family की history में ही है migration. Then I did my college in New York and I came here all the way without knowing any soul in Bombay except the few people that I met. So it was okay to start off again and somewhere else where you don't know anything about. It was in my blood. It's okay to start off. My father did. At 48, I'm still young and I'm just starting off. So those things are there in the book.
We are going to press for
Let's
some
have-
audience questions.
Let's have a bit of conversation. I hope that you, and please don't rush when you're reading my book. Don't rush through the book. Just take your time reading it. Because I'm scared you will skip something, कुछ छूट जाएगा. कोई detail, कोई ambience, कुछ रह नहीं जाएगा. Read your book. I said, you told me yesterday that you picked it up. How have you just read my book? Rubbish. He said, no, I've read your book. तो कोई नहीं question पूछ ले. And I hate you. You just browse. You just ऐसे करके. I said, you horrible. I don't like you at all. I said, yeah, Barkha.
The first time I sat across the table with you was when you came for the Golden Jubilee celebrations.
Yes. Oh yes, at Sacred Heart.
Yes.
Oh yes.
And I remember exactly what outfit also you were wearing. You were dressed totally in black.
Oh, okay, that's my favorite. My happy color is black.
Anyways, we talked about your childhood, your memories.
Yeah.
Nothing about your film career,
Uh-huh.
your favorite co-actor, whom you hated the most, whom you liked to work
Tell
with
me,
the
does
most.
the book resonate with you?
Yes, every part of it.
It does, right?
And I could figure Sister Rita with a little beard walking in the school.
We used to call her Koga. I don't know what
I
it meant.
remember it so clearly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were quite wicked actually.
All
In
of
a
us.
very quiet kind of way we were. I remember वो जो बरसात में गंडोए निकलते थे ना, तो हम जाकर salt डालते थे. And they would call करके. I mean, this is cruel. But we were capable of cruelty, and we used to giggle. We used to giggle, and we thought we were doing something. Yeah, tell me.
I'm just keen to know that, needless to say, that every bit resonates very well. I think we all can find a part of us in all the stories somewhere while we've grown up. I think the tactics we played with friends,
Yes.
probably the neighborhood anecdotes. I don't know, I was rewinding time and kind of searching my few memories there. While you were kind of corroborating all of this, these are your memories, you've penned them down beautifully as I can already kind of foresee. But were the external helps required at some point to recheck on few data, or were there some missing links? Was there anyone else who also kind of was a part of this putting together of your
Many
memories?
people helped me cross-check many things. Facts had to be cross-checked over and over again so that I don't make a major mistake. If I'm saying that partition happened in 47, and my father tells me that there was not a single Muslim left in Amritsar. कोई एक मुसलमान नहीं था अमृतसर में 47 के बाद. But in the year 57, when I was 5, the first azan was heard from the mosque. And I remember my father getting up and then he lifted me up also. He overlooking the chajja, looking inside the mosque. और वहाँ पे somebody who's make do kind of a loudspeaker, I mean horn जैसा, वो ऐसे हाथ में ऐसे बोले करके, हाँ, and he's singing the azan. I mean these things had to be cross-checked. मस्जिद कब बंद हुई थी, कोई मुसलमान थे क्या तब, because these are very important facts. हाँ, partition की इतनी stories had to be cross-checked. My mother's family leaving Burma, walking across the Assam hills, my nanny bringing her gramophone with her, carrying the gramophone on her and crossing over. And these stories, so many things had to be cross-checked. And I would call other relatives and family members and say, okay, do you remember this story? You remember Mama used to tell us this? And my sister would say, I don't remember. And then I would call my Masi and say, hey, really auntie? They all, my mama's side, they all had anglicized names because they grew up in Burma. My mom was in a convent school. They couldn't pronounce the Indian names like Himadri, Gayatri, Savitri. So they called the girls Gertie, Sarah, Lily, and all that. So I had to go back and research, and then I would scribble notes everywhere in my files, and then I would forget wherever I've written something on this, and I cross-checked it, but wo kahan likha hai, wo kahan, I mean there was a lot of work has gone into this book. I wrote the first few chapters about 20 years ago, maybe 21 years, first 4 chapters, and then after that I was just making notes. I have all my parents' voices on recorder. Yeah, I used to sit down with Mama and Piti and record them. Kini murke dasso, murke sunao. He just wanted to, sort of have it on tape so that I don't make any mistakes later. And they had their memory of their earlier years was so clear. Like my memory now of my childhood is so crystal clear. If you ask me right after that, I hardly have much to write because I don't remember things like the way I remember my childhood. And I'm glad that I've been writing for 20 years. That's why this book, agar nahi likha hota to I wouldn't have today itna nahi yaad. But that time is clear in my head.
But though it took 20 years, this is not her only book. She's written 3 more books.
This is my fault. Thank you so much. Thank you. I think we're...
The kids growing up in today's date and time, do they have those kind of memories, or how is their childhood? You look at the young kids growing up, how do you think they miss on these things?
It's very different today. I don't know. Childhood is very different. There's everybody knows too much. That's the trouble. Children, I don't think they're really experiencing childhood the way we have experienced childhood. We discovered things when we got to that age. अब तो बचपन जैसी और innocence जैसी भी तो कोई चीज़ नहीं है ना. They have too much exposure. They have access to every kind of knowledge, and they are smart. They don't even think much about these things जिसके लिए हम लोग इतना वो ऐसे हमारे लिए इतना ज़्यादा important था, each stage, each phase, as it unfolded, as we reacted to each layer upon layer, as it kept peeling off, and we understood what it is to go from being a child to becoming a young girl and to move towards womanhood. It was so beautiful. All those things that one discovered gradually. There was beauty in that, of not knowing and then discovering. So that beauty is not there today. So what can we say? I think it's a loss. Yeah, it's a loss in this aspect. But then of course kids are smart, they're not so smart.
Experiences or the creative aspect, how is it going to develop? Because everything is out there. The imagination part is like...
Yeah, it's going to go further.
Yes.
No, there will not be a stopping or a kind of a stagnation point. That will be the starting point. हम लोग जहाँ से शुरू करके और when we achieved something and we thought, oh wow, I'm able to do this now. वो सब पीछे छूट चुका है. The starting point will be further up ahead. So the benchmark of having achieved something has gone up also. So there will be another kind of area that they will be exploring. Not this zone which the book talks about, what we've experienced. लेकिन उनका जो starting point and then going ahead and achieving वो कुछ और होगा. It has to be. There can't be any stopping from human mind to grow and to be curious about it. There will be other things.
I'd like to know
enjoy reading memoirs, and I was like, let me begin. And then I don't know what held me back for some reason, because I'm already reading a book. I'm the kind that if I pick a new one, that will go, into the corner. If I enjoy the new one more, that one will just languish in one corner and never finish.
Yes.
So I would wait to buy the book. Then we have a little book club of ours where this again came up and we decided to read it. So I said, no, first let's just finish this book that we are reading, then we'll buy this. And someone bought it and she's all praises for the book. And I'm glad I held on.
I'm so glad to
And
hear.
I'm glad I stopped, I held back from reading it, because now I know I'm going to enjoy it even more.
Ah,
So
yes.
thankful
Oh, that's so
for it.
wonderful to
Yeah.
hear.
And listening to each and everything, I'm all the more curious. And I'm just on my last 20 pages of the book, and I'm so happy. I would have finished that and buy this and read it.
Yes, and I would love your feedback.
Definitely.
Yes,
Definitely.
I would love for feedback from all of you. I'm very easily accessible. deeptinaval@gmail.com.
I've been
Yes.
admiring you from the time of your first movie.
Thank you.
Right from there.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'd just like to ask you one very important, like once you start writing something, in the end you're always taking a long time to think of the title. So when I usually see title of the book, the name of the book, how do you name the book? When you see the Diary of Annie Frank, you see the memoirs, and then you suddenly see a country called Childhood. So that's like, you have to think the name.
It's a memoir. It's my childhood memoir. But I think the phrase is used in the book. I use it as a passing phrase in one of the passages. And when my publishers, when that team, they read this chapter, they said this is going to be the title of the book. But I use it as a describing something. I say that this is the I describe the ambience where I grew up, and then I say that these are the sights, sounds, smells from the country where I grew up, a country called Childhood.
And
So they picked up the phrase.
yeah, and it was very, very small. It's a country. It was a country in itself.
Yeah, it's a metaphor for that phase of my life, which is called childhood, and it's like a vast country. It has so much to give you. It nurtures you. It prepares you. It just it's who you are going to be after you leave this, and it's also a land which you can never return to except in your memory. So yeah.
Can I ask, what do you like being the most? A writer, a director, or actor, or painter?
I've always loved acting, but I think the closest to my heart would be writing. Because that is who, that at least through my writing, you will know who I am. You've known Neha of Chashme Badur, you've known Sadhvi of Panchvati, you've known some other girl of Saath Saath, Mirch Masalas, Mukhain, and so many other characters. But you don't know who Deepti Naval is. So my poetry and my writing, my memoir, gives you an idea, okay, who is this person? Yeah. So I feel this is closest to me, because here is where I'm truly honest to who I am. There is no enactment, there is no pretense, there is no playing hide and seek with my identity.
Okay, ma'am, I have a question.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay.
You just said that you also write poetry, and I can see that you use a lot of imagery in your prose as well. So do you think during storytelling, does it help or does it slow down the progress of the story? How do you see that? Because as a poet, I can see that that imagery would be very strong.
Are you saying that if the imagery is strong, does it pull back the story?
The speed of any particular sequence or scene that is playing out. Because today's news, they want Chetan Bhagat. So do you think that helps in a way? Because I enjoy your kind
There
of,
are kinds
you know.
and kinds of writers and writing.
Right. But do you think it doesn't hinder,
हर
right?
हर एक का अपना तरीका है कहने का. If he doesn't have, if Chetan Bhagat has tries to say something fast, well, that's the way he remembers it.
Exactly.
And he's okay. He just wants to make statements after statements and take you,
Conversation
get you there fast.
Yes, yes.
Whatever he's trying to say, I haven't read him, but I do have glanced through his books. But I would not be able to identify his style because I've not really read him. I've read Vikram Seth, I've read Arundhati Roy, who I admire a lot as a writer. But I think writing is not about rushing. So इसको commercial film थोड़ी देख रहे हैं, ये scene के बाद वो scene
So,
होता
but
है,
then, is there any, from the point of view of publishers, is there any kind of...
No, my publishers loved the visual quality of my book, and that's the only way I could have written this. So for me, I have to just be true to my memories.
I think the whole purpose would be defined if you're not able to paint a picture of the childhood in our memories too. So,
हाँ, otherwise किताब क्या होती है? हम वहाँ रहते थे, पीछे मस्जिद थी, ऊपर शोभा and baby and Gogi and all used to live. और फिर हम लोग सेक्रेट स्कूल जाते थे, वहाँ नंस थी, वो बड़ी स्ट्रिक्ट थी. I can tell my story in 3 pages and get done. I know.
But then we have to have that kind of a memory. Very important.
Yes.
Old memory.
Yes, I have. That has been my plus point. I think. This book is visual because I so vividly remember
And it is
so much about it.
real so authentic. I haven't read the book, definitely going to read it. But it's so authentic. Literally authentic. You can feel it.
Thank you so much. Now I want to get all of your feedback. I've talked enough now.
Let's get to the signing, and of
Okay.
course we did not get to the whole part. There are escapades about her cinema and running away
I've
from
written,
home.
yes.
Yes,
Running
all
away
of
from
that.
home. We talked about it.
No,
We did talk. Yeah, I was. Yeah.
but we should
Let's-
not be
let's-
giving up the
let's end with
suspense.
Did you know कि मैं कश्मीर देखने घर से भाग गई थी? पता है आपको? याद है? पता है? Because they were upstairs. They knew everything what was going on in our house. Yeah, I had seen, like I said, as a teenager I had become a great introvert. You couldn't tell what was happening in my head. It was unhealthy. I feel teenagers should be able to talk to their parents. They should talk to everyone. ताकि पता हो ना कि कहाँ जा रहे हो आप. I was such an introvert. बात ही नहीं करनी और बहुत influenced by cinema. अनुपमा फिल्म आई तो शर्मिला टैगोर की जहाँ वो बात नहीं करती हैं पूरी फिल्म में तो पूरा सीजन मैंने बात नहीं करना मैं बात मम्मा would keep calling me मैं जवाब ही नहीं दूँ. So I went through that phase और इस difficult phase में weird phase I would call it. I decided that every film that I would see उसमें कश्मीर में गाने गा रहे हैं, डल लेक है, चिनार के पेड़ हैं, I mean there was great beauty, the snow peaks in the back and all this, you know, this songs and तो दिमाग खराब हो ही चुका था and I decided कि मैंने नहीं यहाँ रहना, मैं कश्मीर जाऊँ. I got up, I left home, I went to the railway station, I bought a ticket and I'm heading towards जम्मू. मुझे इतना पता था कि पठानकोट तक तो ट्रेन जाती है, पठानकोट के आगे बस मिलेगी जो जम्मू से फिर मतलब वो बस श्रीनगर आपको पहुंचाएगी. Once you go to Kashmir, then the world is such a beautiful place to be in. Somebody will adopt me as a daughter. And इतनी shootings होती हैं और मैं तो shooting देखूंगी और मैं रहूंगी बस वहाँ पे. My life will be in Kashmir. It was so daft because I got caught now at Pathankot station and I got a thapad also from the police inspector.
At what age?
I couldn't believe that I was caught.
What was your age?
13.
And when did you start aspiring to become that great legendary actress that you became?
9.
And who motivated you?
I met Balraj Sandit. He came to our city. He came to our town. He was performing a play called Kanak Di Balli. Kanak Di Bali was a Punjabi play, and my father, knowing that I have a thing for the arts, so he ticket le aaya, he says, "Beta, play ho raha hai. You want to come with me?" And he said, Balraj Sahni, the actor. So Balraj Sahni naam sunte ही, I said, "Oh, Kabuli wala." And 2 साल पहले मैंने काबुली वाला देखी थी. That I was 9. उसमें Minnie was 9. I was 9. So I was huge connect with Kabuli wala. And now Kabuli wala himself is in town and performing. So I just zipped up and I got my autograph book, और मेरी autograph book में बहुत मेरे लिए important थी. तो I just सर्दियों के दिन वहाँ पे in the open air theatre और वहाँ पे perform हो रहे हैं. I got my first autograph from बलराज साहनी. तो वो chapter इसमें काफ़ी मैंने detail में लिखा हुआ है. How I managed to get that autograph, because there was this milling Punjabi rowdy crowd around him, the boys from different colleges, and but I managed to get it. And when I'm looking up at him and I see, wow, so, and then later I think, I didn't know at that time, but later I did think, okay, I think that somehow, somewhere, if I hadn't met him in real, maybe शायद वो impact नहीं होता. But फिल्मों का बहुत impact मेरे दिमाग में. सुबह मीना कुमारी, fan I used to imagine कि हमारी जो मस्जिद का जो ऊपर का डोम है ना, मीना कुमारी हाथ में किताब लेके बुर्का पहन के वहाँ ऐसे घूमती. I used to imagine, my imaginary world was like way ahead of, I was somewhere else, my imagination was somewhere else. एक बे होती थी, you remember बे? Okay, at the end of the upper first floor, I had planted Bee, who was a real character. I would imagine that Bee is not living over there. She's living on the top of my house, Chandravali house के top terrace पे, कोने पे बैठ के वो दुनिया को देखती है ऊपर से. And I've written about her the way I imagined, what she does, what she is like. And then when Bebe, I called her Bebe, but it was taken from Bee. And I gave her a different personality, like a धूप छाँव जैसा, very much like Bey, but I called her Bebe, and I've written about that. And then when Bey fell and died on the street, I described how Bey actually fell and died, and then I say that my baby didn't exactly fall like that, it was very different. And then I describe how I see my baby falling. जैसे मैंने वो Dance of the Songs describe किया ना, spread out on a leaf, the song lyrics, and I describe how my baby, is falling. She falls like a gossamer, like a feather. She floats in the, like a song sprayed on a thin leaflet and flying in the wind. And she never really, this is a child's imagination. My publisher was a little skeptical. He says, we can't really take the book in those areas which don't. I said, to me, there is no child's life is complete without his inner world, his imaginary world. It's just not complete. I can't. Thank you, it's lovely interacting with all of you. It gives me a chance.
On that note, Ms. Naval, it has been such a beautiful session with you.
Thank you.
We have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with you on the various aspects of your life and your book with Ms. Deepika Bhalla. I, Pallavi Pava, Ehsaas woman of Ludhiana, take this opportunity to express my gratitude to Ms. Deepti Naval and to Ms. Deepika Bhalla on behalf of the Prabha Khaitan Foundation for such an interesting and engaging conversation. I also express my gratitude to our patron, Sri Cement Limited, and our associate, Radisson Hotel, and of course, the wonderful audience for making the Right Circle session in Ludhiana an absolute success. I now request Ms. Divya Oswal to please felicitate author Ms. Deepti Naval with a Kantha Autorio from Bengal.
अच्छा, मेरी किताब में एक सेक्शन है जिसमें मैंने कहा है कि मेरा जो नाम है वो दीप्ति है. दीप्ति नहीं है और ये भी दीपिका नहीं है, ये भी दीपिका है.
Yes, that's right.
It's always VIP here.
It has to be Deepti, double E.
I also request Ms. Navneet Sarabjot Singh to facilitate Ms. Deepika Bhalla with the Kantha Road. Thank you once again for a wonderful evening. Before you leave, I request you to get your copy of Ms. Deepti Naval's book, A Country Called Childhood, a memoir signed by her.